Good afternoon, everyone. It's Friday Eve. It's time to be excited. You know, it's almost the end of the work and school week. Yeah. So my name is James Prysock. I am the director of the Office of Social Justice and Activism. You could think of it as a diversity and inclusion office here at Otterbein's campus. One of the series that we love doing every year is the Under the Light series, and this is the last one for this semester. We will be rolling out a couple more next semester. So those of you that are interested in the material or just like it because it's great to meet one of your class requirements, that's cool too. We appreciate you nonetheless. So we'll be having some more next semester on different topics than we had this semester. So today we are previewing a documentary, Lady Wrestler, and we are fortunate enough to have the director and producer of the documentary with us today, Chris Bournea. He is the director and producer of the documentary, and this is some of the untold stories about African American women in wrestling, in the ring. Chris is also a journalist, author, and filmmaker based right here in Columbus, Ohio, where many of the wrestlers trained during the sport's golden age in the 1930s all the way through the 1960s. Bournea is the co-author with Raymond Lambert of the acclaimed nonfiction book, All Jokes Aside. Stand-up comedy is a funny business. The book offers a backstage look into Lambert's successes, failures, and lessons learned running the legendary Chicago Comedy Club. All Jokes Aside is the name of the comedy club. And so that was really prominent in the 90s, so you had a lot of people coming out of the Star Factory. So we're talking about Jamie Foxx, Chris Rock, Steve Harvey, Monique, D.L. Hughley, Bernie Mac, Carlos Mencia, Dave Chappelle, and many others that matriculated through this factory. So that's another interesting thing. Maybe we have to have you come on campus to talk about that too one day. Yeah. Bournea is also the author of the novel The Chloe Chronicles, which invites readers along on the globe-hopping adventures of an exotically beautiful multiracial young woman named Chloe Barreau. He is currently working on a new updated edition of The Chloe Chronicles. He also wrote and directed the dramatic play The Springtime of Our Lives, which debuted at the Columbus Performing Arts Center in October of 2013 and played Cleveland's Playhouse Square in June of 2014. So a lot going on, and somehow you still took some time out to talk to us today, so we appreciate that. So without further ado, please give a warm welcome to Chris Bournea.
Thank you, James, again for inviting me. Yeah, and I didn't intentionally position myself back there so I could make an entrance. I was actually back there talking to my friend Christopher, who's a Otterbein alum. So thank you all for having me here today. So I actually want to start off with a little bit of trivia, and I have a prize. This is not a raffle. This is just a jump rope since it's the theme of the day today. So who can name a movie in which a female athlete is the main central character? Just any movie, the first hand that I see, that you have a correct answer, you win the jump rope. Yeah.
$1 Million Baby.
Awesome. That was actually one of the ones that I was thinking of. What's your name?
Emma.
Emma? Thank you, Emma. So here's a few other ones. There was a movie last year on Netflix called First Match about a black female wrestler. Who's heard of the movie Girl Fight? Okay, so does anyone know Michelle Rodriguez? What do you know her from?
That's Jane, right?
You're thinking of Rosario Dawson.
Just kidding.
So Michelle Rodriguez has been in the Fast and the Furious movies, and her breakout role was this movie called Girl Fight in 2000, where she played a female boxer. There was $1 Million Baby. Hilary Swank won an Oscar for that. So another movie. So Sanaa Lathan was in this. Does anyone know the movie I'm referring to that came out around? I know this is a little bit, maybe a little bit before you guys' time, but it came out in 2000. Starred Sanaa Lathan. You're nodding. Love and Basketball, where Sanaa Lathan played a basketball player. And one of the most famous movies about female athletes is a movie called A League of Their Own. Anybody familiar with that? Anybody want to give a little bit about A League of Their Own?
There's no crime in baseball.
Exactly, that was the famous line by Tom Hanks. So League of Their Own is about a women's baseball league during the 1940s, during the war, when a lot of the men were off fighting, so the women were able to form their own league. So the women in this documentary, it's kind of a courting transition, but they were in a league of their own. So this documentary is about black women who were world famous professional wrestlers back in the 1950s and 60s, and the vast majority of them were from Columbus. Back in the 30s, there was a promoter named Billy Wolf, a wrestling promoter, who settled here, and he groomed his wife, named Mildred Burke, to be the first world women's wrestling champion. And he knew that Mildred needed competitors because wrestling wasn't something that women were going, I mean, sports in general was not something that women were going into, but let alone wrestling. So he started recruiting women from around the Columbus area and actually from all over the country into his wrestling business. And so Billy Wolf, he was a white man, but he was inspired by Jackie Robinson. Anybody familiar with Jackie Robinson and what his big claim to fame in history was? Don't everybody raise your hands at once. Anybody want to take a guess? Jackie Robinson? Yeah.
First African American player.
Yeah, exactly. So Billy Wolf was inspired by the attention and the excitement that Jackie Robinson brought to baseball, and he thought that if he recruited black women into wrestling, that it would bring the same kind of excitement, especially because wrestling is kind of known for being kind of sensational and controversial. So in this documentary, I was able to interview two women who were famous back in the 50s and 60s, Ethel Johnson and Ramona Isbell. So what I'll show you is kind of the condensed 30-minute version of the documentary. The full-length version is like 90 minutes, but I'll just show you this condensed version, and then afterward, I'll take any questions you may have, and we can kind of discuss some of the themes in the documentary.